But at the forefront of this one, Washington winning in OT and heading to the playoffs with the rookie QB. In studio with Reaction, Joe Musso alongside Bryant McFadden. Mac, I said it and I'll say it again. If you give that man another chance, he's going to make it pay.
He is special.
Did against the Eagles after his INT and does here after a missed kick at the end of regulation. We'll get to it all here, but how do you quantify clutch that you're seeing from Jaden Daniels right now?
He has the IT factor. He has the it factor. He's Mr. Clutch. When the moment is at his most critical, he doesn't blink, he doesn't flinch. He's very, very cool, calm, collected, and he just makes plays because he is a playmaker for the Washington Commanders. He was a playmaker for LSU, and the same playmaking skills that we saw in the SEC, we're starting to see in the National Football League. And to your point, he has that factor when it comes to needing something to happen, and you've given him multiple opportunities. You're holding your breath because you know he's going to cash in those said opportunities. And I love when Jaden Daniels is running the football. I said during the pregame show, I said during halftime. When he is running the football, he is better. Their entire offense is better. When you look at what we saw in the first half, halftime, 1 carry for 24 yards on the ground. What we saw in the second half, 15 rushing attempts for over 100 yards. That is who he is. That's why he won the Heisman last year in college football, and that's why he's going to win the Offensive Rookie of the Year in the NFL, because he is the ultimate dual threat in terms of being a +1 as a defender. We cannot prepare for 12 players on the football field for the offense. We only can prepare for 11, but when you have a +1, he is basically 2 players in one. He is the quarterback, and at any given time, he can become a running back for their offense. In both cases, he's overly effective, and that's why they're currently in a new position, the position they haven't been in years, which is holding a playoff spot.
They certainly do, currently sitting as the 6th seed as Green Bay moves down to the 7. That could change in Week 18. Still something to play for there. But Daniels, as you said, in the second half, 103 rushing yards. The team ran for 169 in the second half. A concerted effort to get it back on the ground and control this game even when chasing. But they delete that deficit and ultimately walk away a winner here in OT. With that, again, Commanders clinch playoffs, as do the Rams. The Bucs now in control of their destiny, a win over New Orleans, and we will have solidified that NFC playoff picture in Week 18. Back to this one, and the moment in this game that I think that may have cost Atlanta their season, ostensibly. I know it's not over just yet, but clock management.
Oh, horrible.
30 ticks.
Horrible.
You hit a play.
Horrible.
You got 2 in your pocket. What did you see from Atlanta that may have cost them a couple plays there late down the stretch of regulation?
Just mismanaged the situational moment for me. I mean, you talk about having the ball, right? With enough time on the clock, with 2 timeouts at your disposal, your young rookie quarterback hits Darnell Mooney. I think it was around the 40, 45-yard line. Darnell did not get out of bounds, right? Around that time, it was maybe 40 or so seconds on the clock. If you're Coach Raheem, knowing that Darnell did not get out of bounds, you have 2 timeouts. Use one of them. Gather your thoughts, because now you actually have the defenders from the Commanders on their heels because of the positive yards you just created with that pass to Darnell Mooney. For whatever reason, Coach Raheem, who's done a really, really good job this season, did not decide to call a timeout. Critical seconds worked off the clock. They were able to snap the football in the next play in the teens. And now you're pressing. If he would have utilized that timeout, you still have 1 timeout at your disposal. You have an opportunity to huddle. Go ahead and make sure you call whatever play you believe gives you the best opportunity to get closer to being in field goal range. Because remember, your starting kicker in Younghoe Koo was not in the lineup. So you were already dealing with a backup kicker. So you have to understand his leg, his strength, his accuracy is not as good as your day 1 kicker. But for whatever reason, he decided to keep the timeouts in his pocket. I say this time and time again, timeouts are free. You don't actually have to pay for them. You can use them. That's what they're there for. Why are you taking that 1 timeout that you did not use into the locker room with you to console you with this loss?
Yeah, you're holding.
It doesn't make any sense.
No. And it ultimately cost them at least 2 plays there from Michael Penix. The leg
and
that
a closer attempt.
The leg that would have been needed there for the kicker in Riley Patterson, who comes up short by about 6 or so yards on what would have been.
Just imagine if he used that timeout, he was able to get an extra 10 yards compared to where they actually attempted that field goal.
I'll tell you
because
exactly
he was dead on. He was dead on, but to your point, he was about 6 or 7 yards off. An extra 10 yards would have gotten you a W. An extra 10 yards would have gotten you in a position where you control your own playoff destiny. Win next week, nothing else matters, but because of the lack of clock management. Now, not only do you have to win, you have to get help from an opposing team who actually don't like you in the New Orleans Saints. So the Saints can care less if you're not in the playoffs, because guess what? They're not going either.
The reality would have been grim if this outcome was flipped the other way for Washington.
No question.
Atlanta,
the blender,
winning in Week 18. Washington losing in Week 18. The Bucs having a win in Week 18. And it could have been a Washington team, not just in a bad spot, but not in the playoffs. Instead, they are sitting as a 6 seed through 17 weeks with their star rookie quarterback. That would mean a trip to L.A., the current 3 seed in the first round of the playoffs. They're in the wild card round, Mac. When you look at Washington as it's currently constructed, very reliant on the legs of Jaden Daniels. I don't say that as a slight to this team, but it is what has made them as dangerous as they are. Is this a in-the-way team or a here-to-play team come playoff time?
This is a team that can really move some furniture in the playoffs. They're not going to walk into the playoffs and be quiet. They plan on making noise. And the reason why I believe they can do so is because when you look at the NFC, right, from top to bottom in terms of teams that we believe will have 7 spots in the NFC playoffs, in terms of playmakers, right, of course, you start with a guy like Saquon Barkley. You know, you can throw in Justin Jefferson, you know, A.J. Brown. There's quite a few playmakers that we all would agree and say they're playmakers. But for Washington, their best playmaker is their quarterback. He is the ultimate playmaker for their team. So when you look at playoff football, playmakers are very, very important, and also playmakers that really embrace the moment when it gets tight, when the kitchen gets hot. That's who Jaden Daniels is. So if you give him an opportunity to stick around and just slither around the door of victory, he is going to walk through that said door. Ask Chicago. Ask Philly. Ask Atlanta. They allowed him to slither around the door of victory, and he will walk through it. He is Mr. Clutch, and we don't rarely see a rookie quarterback just earn that title, because it's something that he's earned. He earned it a year ago, which led to the Heisman Trophy. Now he's earning it once again. Not only will it lead to, in my opinion, the Rookie of the Year award, but it also has led to a playoff spot for the Commanders team that in 2023 was piss poor. They were bad. They couldn't protect. They couldn't make any plays, couldn't score any points, couldn't get any stops. But when you have a quarterback that is him, he makes everything around him look better. Think about outside of Terry McLaurin and Zach Ertz, pass catcher-wise, you got guys who've been around, been trying to figure things out. But when they got with Jaden Daniels, they've earned their spot, they've earned their keep, and they have made plays.
He has elevated the level of the play around everyone around him, and the difference between the 6 and 7 seed, again, is the difference between a trip to L.A., the current reality for Washington, and a trip to Philadelphia, the current reality for the Green Bay Packers. Though, because those can swap in Week 18. The Bears and the Packers will play in Week 18. The Pack need a win there, and they need a loss by Washington at Dallas in order to move back up to that 6th seed and, again, find their way to L.A. and not Philadelphia. Here's all that comes out of this one. Scenarios following Sunday Night Football. Commanders, they clinch that playoff berth. The Rams, by way of strength of victory, yes, the 5th tiebreaker, they officially clinch, and that head-to-head in Week 18 with Seattle, no longer their playoff life. The Seahawks, poof, gone. The Buccaneers now in control of their own destiny. They'll take on the Saints. Should be a win, but don't count them before you get them.